Hopefully I'm not getting more thoroughly amateur. I'm sure I'm not getting less so. I am Robert McKay. This is a thoroughly amateur production. But to prove it, I'm going to scooch my chair just a bit. There. Now I'm sitting more comfortably. I was this way and the chair was, it was all not all cattywampus, but a tad bit. This is a review video, and what I'm going to be reviewing, and I believe I did a review of this way back when this channel was still brand new. If so, fine. If not, Knob Creek Rye. This is the 7-year. I don't know if they have a younger one. I seem to think that I might possibly recall that the first bottle of this I had did not have an age statement. This does. 7, Knob Creek 7. It is Kentucky straight rye whiskey, comes from the Jim Beam Distillery. And as always, I forgot to look up the mash bill. When I was doing the written reviews, I never forgot. Now that I'm just doing video reviews, I never remember. And it does not have the mash bill on here. It is 100 proof. That's the minimum proof of Knob Creek whiskey. I don't see anything else on here of note. So we bring the glass over, and you can probably see it's kind of smeary. By the time I get to a review, I'm usually on my second glass, sometimes the third. For some reason, the bottles I intend to review never come up to be the first of the night. And I'm not going to go into how my rotation works and all that. You don't care about that. I will pour us. What us? Yeah, you're sitting here with me, right? I will pour me some whiskey. And I hate wax seals, and Knob Creek's is about the worst I've ever encountered. There's the color, not a bad color. Now, as I said, I forgot to look up the mash bill, but to be a rye whiskey in the United States, it has to be at least 51% rye. The other 49% can be whatever you want. MGP does a 95.5 rye, 95% rye, and 5% sprouted barley. You could make a 100% rye if you wanted to. Just so long as it's at least 51%, you can call it rye whiskey in this country. I am not a rye guy. I'm a bourbon guy. I've learned that. I've experimented around, and I've found that while I do like a rye whiskey on occasion, most of the time what I want is bourbon whiskey. But early on, the experimentation I did is what helped me to understand that. One of the first bottles I bought way back in 2021 was Knob Creek Rye. I got that, and I got Bullet Rye, and I recently rebought both of them after about 3 years. I didn't care for the Bullet Rye. The first time around I did, but my palate has grown. I've learned better what I like and don't like, and this other bottle, second bottle of Bullet Rye, I didn't care for, and like a dimwit, I didn't save it to review, so I can't go into detail on it. The other one I got was Knob Creek Rye, and I remember I enjoyed that too. This time around, I'm not so certain. But rather than just that vague generality, Why don't I tell you exactly what I do or don't like, what I find, all that good stuff? The nose tells me it's a rye. There are two things that, for me, are characteristic of at least most, if not all, rye whiskey. They're what they call bourbon drinkers' ryes, which have a nose and a palate very similar to bourbon. And Hard Truth does a very good bourbon drinker's rye. But for me, if I smell a vegetal note, like green leaves chopped up, or not grass. I've only gotten grassy notes. I take it back. There is one rye I've gotten a grassy note from. That was Balcones 100 proof rye back, way back when. But normally I get grassy notes from bourbon that I don't like, because I don't like tasting grass. And Garrison Brothers is really bad for that. But I'm getting I get that vegetal note, and I also get a mineral note. And I think of it as, well, I have to go into a little background. I live in Albuquerque. We have the Sandia Mountains to the northeast. Or, yeah, it's I guess northeast is just the best direction to say. And they're granite with a layer of limestone on the top. And that granite rots. It's a crystalline rock. And so as it weathers, it can get very rotten. And all the crystals come out and they form this granite. It's not dust per se, but it's not gravel. It's not sand. I don't know what to call it, but the crystal's there. And the mineral note I get from rye whiskey makes me think of that decomposed granite. I'm not getting that mineral note here. I am getting a definite vegetal note, different from what I get from most ryes. Excuse me. If you ever want my allergies to get going, just set me in front of the camera and start me a-talking. I'm not getting the minerality, and the vegetal note is different from what I normally get. Normally it makes me think of a mullein, and if you don't know what mullein is, it's got hairy leaves, a hairy stalk, and the leaves form what they call a rosette, because it's kind of like a rose, like ground level, and there's a stalk that goes right up from the middle, and at the top it thickens out into the flower head. And it'll dry once it's flowered and seeded. It dries, and when I was a kid, we'd break off mullein stalks and play sword fight with them. And normally that's what the vegetal note of a rye makes me think of, is a mullein. This is making me think of thick, waxy green leaves, like maybe a magnolia. And I don't know that this smells like magnolia leaves, but that's what it's making me think of. And there is just a faint hint of a dill note. And a lot of people get dill from rye whiskey on the nose. I never have until here, and it's just barely there. I may even be imagining it, although I don't believe so. It's not an unpleasant nose, but it's not as pleasant as some of the other ryes I've had. By the way, before I go any further, this is what I call a pint. It's a 375 milliliter, which is roughly equivalent to a pint. And I learned my liquor measures when I was in my teens back in the 70s. Even though I didn't drink whiskey then, we had it around, and that's the measures I learned. So I call it a pint. And it cost me $23.99, 24 bucks back on the 10th of January at Total Wine. So I'll find out here, and I'll tell you whether I think it's worth that price. There's a vague sweetness beginning to come out as this glass opens up, but nothing specific, nothing that you could just get. I'm really having to dig in, stick my nose right down in the glass, and I'm barely getting it. So I'm going to go on to the mouthfeel. And it's a little thin for 100 proof. And I don't believe I ever finished telling you about smeary glasses. I know I got as far as it's usually the second or third glass that I do a review on, the second or third glass of the night, and I just use the same Glencairn for all the glasses, unless I'm doing a blind or there's something I hate so much that I rinse it out and grab another glass just so I don't contaminate it. But that means you got finger marks. You know, it might not be exactly the same when I put it down as when I pick it up. So it gets finger marks all across the outside. And I've noticed every once in a while on the videos, either as I'm recording or as I'm watching them back to see what I might can do better. And y'all probably think I'm missing everything I could do better. But I've noticed that sometimes the smeariness shows up on the camera. I wash the glass every night before I put it away, polish it up, but during use it gets the finger marks on it. There might be a vague suggestion of orange peel coming in as it opens up. This is, my third glass from this bottle, so the bottle itself is pretty well opened up. You know, if I let it set for a year, it would continue to open up, and it might get considerably better or considerably worse, but I've never cared to just let a bottle set and set and set. If I'm going to have it, I'm going to drink it. There's an episode of Dragnet, The Big Little Jesus, I think is the name of it. They recorded it first in black and white back in the 50s, and then in the 60s or 70s did the color version. Same story, different actors. Oh, well, Jack Webb is still there. And there's a guy who owns a religious store, and it's the same actor in both episodes there. And they're looking for whoever stole the baby Jesus from a nativity scene at a Catholic parish. And this religious, they're asking, has anybody in trying to sell this? And he says that people don't have religious objects to sell them, they have them to have them. In other words, to make use of them. And to me, that's what whiskey's for. If I don't like it, I ain't going to keep it around for a year or two, just on the off chance I might like it then. If I can't drink it, I'm not going to keep it around. And that's me. And part of that is that I have limited storage space, and so I can't keep them around, not if I'm going to have other bottles. But if you want to keep a bottle around for a long time, see how it turns out, that's fine. There ain't a thing wrong with it. It's just not my style. To be honest, it tastes like bourbon with some honey in it. It kind of tastes like you could use it for cough medicine, a cold medicine. Now, I've not had what I'm about to describe. I've never even, as far as I know, never even been within 100 miles of it. But the old Appalachian people used to take corn liquor and a piece of horehound candy and some honey. They'd dissolve the candy in there and they'd put the honey in and mix it all up. And there'd be variations on that basic recipe. And they'd use that for cough medicine, and I guess it worked. Or else they wouldn't have kept using it. You know, when you ain't got money, you have to be practical. And to this day, in the hills and the hollers of Appalachia, there's people dirt poor. You know, they have to move off somewheres just to find work. They have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to get by and take care of their families. That's one of the reasons why moonshine took such a hold in Appalachia, is the farmers were barely making it, and they could get a better price for liquor than they could for the corn it took to make the liquor. It was more efficient to transport the liquor. You know, you could carry bushels and bushels of corn down the mountain to the market, or you could distill all that excess corn into liquor and carry a couple of boxes down and get more money for it. And when you're trying to feed your family, and the only way you can do that is to turn your corn into white lightning, well, guess what you do? You turn your corn into white lightning, and you don't ask the government's permission to feed your family. And they use that for making medicine too. If nothing else, some good high-proof liquor will take your mind off your hurts. If I had to describe this whiskey in just one word, it would be undistinguished. It's not bad. If I was visiting somebody and he said, "You want some Knob Creek rye?" I wouldn't say no. I'd accept it gratefully, and I'd be glad to have it. But there is better rye out there. I'm just getting that whiskey with honey taste. That's all I'm getting on the palate. There are people who swear by this. And what y'all need to know, especially if you're new to whiskey, is that what I'm getting from this is really what I'm getting from this. What somebody else gets from this is really what he's getting from this. It's not that I'm dumb and he's smart, or he's dumb and I'm smart. It's not that. It's that our palates are different. He picks up things I don't. Maybe I don't. Maybe I pick up things he don't. And we just prefer different things. So if you like this, if you think it's the greatest whiskey on earth, great, not a problem. You don't have to adopt my view. On the finish, there's just a slight hint of menthol. There's a stinging from, I don't think it's the alcohol. I think it's the rye spice that a lot of people always get and I seldom do. There's a little bit of oak, and then all that's left is a tingling on the front of my tongue from that rye spice. Because if it was alcohol, it would have evaporated by now. So my summary on this is that it's not bad, but it's undistinguished. There's nothing really here that sets it apart for me, makes me want to buy another bottle of it. But then I've got spoilt by Sagamore Spirit and Hard Truth. They're more expensive. A bottle of Sagamore is going to run you 60, 70 bucks. A bottle of Hard Truth. Their High Road Rye, which is, if I remember correctly, 93 proof, is like 40 bucks, which is probably comparable to a fifth of this. And this is 100 proof. But the High Road Rye, I believe, is considerably better. The Hard Truth Sweet Mash Rye is, I believe it's 103 proof. It's like 70 bucks, and it is much better than this. And drinking Sagamore and Hard Truth has spoilt me, I think, for other ryes, because they're so good. But I don't particularly dislike it, but I don't particularly like it. And so, with my 8-point rating scale, which you may remember has 1 at the bottom and 8 at the top, I'm going to give this a 4. Okay. That's 2.5 stars, 50 out of 100, 5 out of 10. As I say, not bad, but not especially good, not memorable. I'll set that aside. Take this glass up, and why not go Scottish tonight? See if I can't mispronounce me some Gaelic. Sláinte!